السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين. Mic is yours now, Farah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everyone, and welcome to our second session discussing the topic of worship as derived by the verse in the Quran, chapter 2, verse 21. We are reading from the third word. The topic that we were introduced to very comprehensively last week, as mentioned, had to do with the concept of worship, but it was explained to us or introduced to us through a story or a parable of two soldiers. I understand that these stories or these parables are taken for two purposes, essentially. One, it teaches us, or it at least has taught me, to derive a method to both interpret or approach the speech of God, the Quran, and two, also within our life conditions, making concepts from the speech of the Creator understandable and practical in our lives. So this particular example is of two soldiers who are at a junction, and there's a right path and the left path. And these right and left are also taken to be with their metaphorical meanings, or sort of their traditional meanings of perhaps being the right path and being the wrong path. So for this particular time period when this was being written, the context of the army is something that people are very familiar with. But inshallah, we'll be making sure that we study this in a way that also applies to our practical lives, that it applies to us in our life today in this day and age. So we have two soldiers at a junction. The junction represents our existential reality, and the two soldiers represent our inner condition, the inner condition of us as human beings, as beings endowed with the faculties of reason and consciousness, and the power of choosing, or our free will. And the two roads, or this junction, represents to us two attitudes, or the two roads represent the two attitudes, the right and the left. And the junction itself represents our existential reality in front of us. We've discussed this, and I'll reiterate that, whether we accept it or not, we are constantly faced with at least two ways or attitudes to approach our lives. While there are many practical implications of what we do in our regular day lives, our existential reality underlies all of these practical experiences. And our existential dilemma is and it's a constantly appearing dilemma. In this particular story, it's like, one moment that there are two roads. We do have to understand this example as a constantly reappearing junction in our life. The junction that sort of urges us or forces us to ask ourselves, what is the meaning of this existence, what is existence, and who am I in it? So with this sort of dilemma or situation at hand, we are confronted with two choices or two attitudes with which we can look at this particular question and our very existence. There's the left path and the right path. The left path here is represented by a path that says, I live life or I go through life as if I am completely self-sufficient, as if I am completely self-sustaining. I have complete agency over everything that I want and I do. That whatever I do doesn't really appear to have any consequences. And I can, by this definition, do whatever that I want, and so can another being do that. There's an arbitrariness implied in this approach. No purpose, no meaning, and no order, no process, no organization. And presumably, me not being accountable towards anything or being responsible for any act that I do on this journey, I am free in that scenario. The right path in this case represents someone who says, and when I say someone who says, I mean that not only does one observe this in their life as being obeyed by creation, but also confirms it, intellectually within themselves. So the right path suggests that it is entirely impossible that I could have created or brought myself into existence. It is entirely impossible that I sustain myself or that I am independent, an independent being without needs and interdependencies. And the fact that I did not create myself, but I also don't function within any limits of any order. But rather, it says that because I'm created, it is within my intrinsic nature as in a created being that I am connected to something else. And in this case, what I'm connected to intrinsically within my existence is my creator. Just as we give this example that just as you look at a book, intrinsically within the existence of the book is the existence or the proof for the existence of a creator. So now that I've established that within my existence, I'm connected to something else, and hence I for certain don't have an independent existence. And as a result, my existence is not arbitrary, but rather it has a connection and a responsibility that I owe my existence to something, and that my actions count towards something, that they are not without meaning and consequence. And when we establish this for our own particular existence, we are also concluding this for anything that is of the same nature as ourselves, such as anything within the created universe that is subject to being limited by time or space. It is this recognition and my resulting attitude towards this reality and my conclusion that I've drawn and are going to act in this way that we are calling, or we understand to be called to be worship, or at least what forms the basis of a worshiping mind or a worshiping attitude. A simple example before we delve into the text is, for example, there's a room, and imagine that you're, somebody you really care for, maybe your grandmother or a little baby sleeping inside. And then imagine another room that is completely abandoned. And then envision yourself, the attitude with which you enter each of those rooms. Certainly the room in which you have somebody such as your grandmother or a little baby or both sleeping, You enter with a certain attitude and a process and a behavior that acknowledges their presence and their needs within there, and the reality within which that room is being used for, as opposed to the abandoned room where nobody exists, it's completely barren. You have a completely different nature to it, presumably entering with a very strong gesture, not really paying attention to how you act, how you behave, and certainly it will appear to have no consequences of what you do or how you enter that room. I think this perhaps gives us a fair introduction and a recap from what we were introduced so well in the last week. And with this, if there are no comments or questions or thoughts, we will delve into the reading for today. And there are many questions that we left off from last week, and inshallah, I'll hope to go one by one, answering as much or all of them as we can. For those of us who might be new today or joining us recently, I encourage and really welcome your comments and suggestions and thoughts. Anytime during the discussion, there'll be questions that guide this discussion, but please feel free to express yourself as however you feel free to do so. Make sure to indicate your interest or intention to speak by pressing the raise hand button, and I will definitely notice and call on you. With that, inshallah, we'll start with the paragraph that starts from "O rebellious soul." O rebellious soul, know that one of those two travelers represents those who submit to the divine law, while the other represents the rebellious and those who follow their own desires. The road is the road of life, which comes from the spirit world, passes through the grave, and carries on to the hereafter. As for the kit, bag, and rifle, they are worship and awe of God. There is an apparent burden in worship, but there is an ease and lightness in its meaning that defies description. For in the prescribed prayers, the worshipper declares, "I bear witness that there is no deity but God." That is to say, he finds the door of a treasury of mercy and everything because he is believing and saying, there is no creator and provider other than him. Harm and benefit are in his hand. He is both all-wise, he does nothing in vain, and he is all compassionate. His bounty and mercy are abundant, and he knocks on the door with his supplication. Moreover, he sees that everything is subjugated to the command of his sustainer, of his own sustainer, so he takes refuge in him. He places his trust in him and relies on him and is fortified against every disaster. His belief gives him complete confidence. So we'll pause here and then continue as we've clarified the major concepts in this. So the first question that we'll take from last week and that sort of helps us introduce the passage is the question that I've shared in the chat box. Is the soul itself rebellious, character-wise, or is it from misuse of free will? I think there's a hint already given in the question itself. But the fact that the author addresses the rebellious soul is important in us to identify what is it or who is it that he's actually addressing. What part of us or what understanding of us is it important for us to recognize, for us to understand the remedies or the protection that this author has described in the following sentences. And there are two themes that I think are going to be something that we need to help each other get to the conclusion of through this session today. And there are these two concepts of worship and awe, or in other places, I think it has been referred to as the fear of God. So those being the end sort of purpose of our understanding this passage is, what does it mean to worship and to be in awe of God? But in order to do so, I think these steps are essential in order to get to those conclusions satisfactorily. I'll present my own brief understanding of what I understand from the soul, or whether or not the soul is itself within its nature rebellious. And in the meantime, I invite everybody to share their thoughts on what their understanding of the soul is, and is it rebellious in its nature? I think by definition, the concept of the soul does not have a physical existence. So it is not some part of our body, neither does it have a material manifestation. It is indeed functioning in this world for us through our body, or it lives or resides in our body, but itself it does not have a physical or material existence, which is to say that there is the essence of the soul, or the soul itself, is not of the nature of this universe. It is not limited by time and space, such as created beings with physical material manifestations, such as our body is. So in that sense, the soul is derived, obviously, from an infinite source, reflecting the qualities of its infinite source in its entirety. And it looks towards, or it desires, essentially that which has an internal infinite source of existence. So it is not in its nature to look towards temporary and material gains. But living in this world, as the soul does function or reside through the body, it is presented with options to pursue something in the way that this left and right path is presented to us. So the soul is confronted with a existential reality that it's only facing within this worldly condition. So in and of itself, the soul, so if I establish this, so Ma, I'll take your comment in a second. So within its nature, I established that the soul does not look towards temporary or material gain, but it does have the option to do so in this world. I understand that rebelliousness can come about if one choosing through their free will creates a habitual or repeated action in which they continue to act against the nature of the soul, which is against the desire to look for meaning and infinite connection, or looking for that infinite meaning within existence. It rather looks for temporary and material benefits in its existence. This repetitive choosing should train or mislead our soul to become rebellious or move away from its essential nature. I think about it as a tree growing in a slanted direction. And the more it grows in that slanted direction, it becomes difficult for it to make straight. Although I do believe that as long as it is living, it has the potential to change, albeit it could be more challenging. So the times when man chooses to believe he's self-sufficient, as in he chooses that left path, it aids the soul in becoming rebellious to any authority, because in that left path, there is no such authority. And it's a deluding, or as the author had described, an apparently freeing feeling, hence an illusion. It corrupts, or it, deludes the experience of reality for the soul. And so this fight and struggle against the soul becomes the need to unlearn and change the delusion that it has acquired. And of course, any habit that we have accustomed ourselves to requires a struggle and a fight. So we have our friend Maha has a comment in the chat box. She says, doesn't appear that we're talking about the soul, sounds more like the ego. Maha, if you would like to explain further using the microphone, the mic is yours, but I would like to hear, what exactly, which parts remind you more about the ego in this explanation, and what is your own understanding of what makes the soul rebellious?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you.
Assalam.
Thank you, Farah. I think the soul is a seat of the right direction. It's the breath of God in us, and it's the inspirational direction rather than rebellion or otherwise. I'm not the word rebellion disturbs me, but I do understand that it is Imam Nursi's language. However, rebellion and souls don't sit well with me. Maybe we're talking about the ego. That's why I was wondering. It's the ego, because otherwise, soul coming from the breath of God, from the soul of God, is rebelling against its own creator. Just doesn't sound right to me. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a fair point. And we have another comment by Nadia. She says, but the soul came to choose right or wrong. Let's just keep taking comments. Asifa, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, Farah. How I was actually, while listening to all the comments and yourself, with rebellious, oh rebellious soul, the way the author is addressing, I feel like he's addressing this to, from my understanding, he's calling this to every single soul. And I see a link between that and the phrase where it says there's an apparent burden in worship. So to me, what I am basically grasping from this is, so a person, he actually is called rebellious because he has two paths to choose from, and rebellious in a way that for him worship becomes a burden. And I'm not saying a burden in a wrong way, but burden in sense that, if you're really you're striving to learn the truth, striving to gain knowledge, so like to striving to do anything, to me it's like you have to do some work. And I feel like there's a link between that kind of work and where he says burden in worship. And this is when we think that, wow, we really have to strive for something, that what actually makes a person's soul become rebellious, not necessarily meaning that, he's going on the wrong path, but just to strive for something. He will probably have to think, twice, oh my God, I have to really work hard on it. That sentence where the author said there's an apparent burden in worship, and then he continues by saying, but there is an ease and lightness in its meaning. So basically, if this rebellious soul was to know that the end of it, like even with this striving for the truth, he will actually end up with some ease, and he will get satisfaction in his living. I think then he exits that state of being a rebellious soul. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have two thoughts here. One thought came by from Mahar suggesting that there is no such thing as a rebellious soul, like the soul in its nature that has been breathed into man from the breath of its creator cannot in its nature be rebellious, which I completely agree with, that it's not in its nature to do so. And so she takes particular maybe small issue with the fact of describing the soul with the word rebellious or rebellion. And rather that it refers to what we call the ego. And then we have Asifa, who shared her thought saying that rebellion is a part of the journey of striving, or rebellion is a form of or part of striving as we struggle and overcome the challenges that come with deciding one way or the other. And we have a question here, which I think is a very pertinent question to clarify for everybody and for myself. Like, what is the relationship between, let's say, the free will and the soul? You know, is the soul that chooses right or wrong? Does rebellious soul maybe go to hellfire? She asks. So this is an open question on how people understand also, and I think it's pretty fundamental for us too, on how we understand the relationship between our soul and our free will, and what we characterize ourselves as, I. So for example, when I choose, who chooses? Is it, my soul, or my soul using the free will that chooses? So I'll leave this question for people to also discuss. As far as I understand, and my thought on this is the free will, the soul is endowed with free will. And at least in our worldly, in these conditions, we are endowed, or our soul is endowed with the free will, and we can choose one way or the other. Of course, there's a path that leads to the soul being true to its nature. We can choose to allow the part of our soul to be true to its nature, the way it's created, i.e. looking towards internal meaning and connecting that meaning, or taking that meaning as a message that tells me or explains who I am, what is the nature of my createdness, who created me, and what that entity is. So the soul that seeks to get to know the reason and the source of its existence. Or the soul can choose, based on the fact that we are living in worldly conditions, that it does experience desires pertaining to this world, that it does have the option to consider itself to be self-sufficient, or to look at material as the source of what it desires, and start to, let's say, dirty itself or cover itself. One of the word that I was wanting to maybe substitute this rebelliousness, and maybe Maha, this might address some of your concern. I was thinking of replacing it with like weakening one's soul. When something becomes weak, it doesn't really have obviously the strength to counter something else. And that can feel difficult also, and requires a struggle and a striving. So we have multiple comments. For someone who, for Alia, who shared the verses from the Quran, I think it will be definitely most helpful if you share them in the English version also, along with the Arabic version. so that it's easier for us to get to the meaning through translation directly. Tolu says, I'm not sure I know exactly what the soul is. Alia says, consider the human self. So this is, I guess, in response to Tolu. Consider the human self and how it is formed in accordance with what is meant to be, and how it is imbued with moral failings as well as with consciousness of God. Oh, happy, maybe this is the translation, sorry. Oh, happy state shall indeed attain he who causes the self to grow in purity, and truly lost is he who buries it. So I think this also helps fortify this point of the soul being able to choose whether or not to, quote unquote, purify itself or to take decisions that are applicable, suitable, comfortable with its essential nature, or one out of delusion and lack of both, lack of evidence experientially and intellectual evidence, and causes itself to be lost or deluded. Tolu says, and I think we may all think of the soul in different ways, define it differently. Tolu, how do you define it? I'm, definitely you're familiar with the word one way or the other. So I'd be curious to know what definition you have at this stage in time. It would be worth sharing. Alia shares further ayats, and when I have formed him fully and breathed into him of my spirit, fall down before him in prostration. So another evidence or claim that we hear from the Quran, that the source of the soul or its essential nature is that coming or reflecting from its infinite source. It's a, it's a complete reflection, or, it completely encompasses or reflects its infinite source. And so within its nature, as Maha was describing, it's not rebellious, but as we've been making the argument that we make it rebellious. We have two hands up. Asifa, is your hand up from before, or is it a fresh hand? If so, you can just like okay, great. Tolu, please go ahead.
Hey, salams. Yeah, you asked me what my definition of a soul is. I honestly don't have a definition of soul. I'm honestly not even sure that I'm not sure I've wrapped my head around the understanding of a soul. I'm not sure I'm entirely convinced I have a soul. Like I guess maybe because I don't have a definition, I don't even know if like a soul quote unquote exists. Like I exist, I'm here, but when we go to the next step, which is a soul, I'm not sure what a soul is. So if I don't know what a soul is, I can't necessarily say that I have one or not. And so I don't have a definition of a soul. It's, I guess, where I'm starting from, which is probably like ground zero. So just to respond to the question that you asked me, Farah.
Thank you, Tolu. Dr. Ali, please go ahead. Dr. Ali, you're muted.
We don't have to define the soul or spirit, as Maha made it clear, the spirit and nafs in the language of the Quran. But Aliyah narrated or cited a verse there, the word nafs is used. It means a human being. That is a different context, a human being in general. But when we make the difference between what makes us as human beings, apart from our body. For example, my sense of love. Can I define the sense of love? Can I describe it at all in any ways? Only I experience it. It is with me. It is what makes me as a human being. Spirit is like this. Human, whatever, apart from our bodily existence, what makes us our reasoning, our consciousness, our feelings, this side of us, which is experiential to us, and we understand consciously that we have such a quality, that is the spirit. What is interesting, spirit is given to us by our Creator in order to be used to get to know the Creator within the conditions of this world. We have to understand that we have been given the opportunity to choose, which is free will. I can choose. For example, I may have a tool in my hand, and I can choose, let's say, a hammer. I can choose this hammer to do something useful or to harm something, to cut something, to kill something, a living being, for example. The spirit, human spirit, is given this tool, which is to be used because in a right way, because automatically human spirit, through human consciousness, which is what human spirit is, consciousness, we know that, we acknowledge that this is right or this is wrong. We may not have any excuse that I didn't know that, for example, to kill an animal was wrong. I mean, I didn't know that it was wrong in an innocent animal for any purpose, just to kill. Or let's make it clear, to kill a man, everybody knows that to kill a man is bad. It means it should not be chosen by human free will. Why is it important to have the free will? Only through the free will that we choose between right and wrong, so that we can improve our potentialities. But of course, by its own nature, free will can choose right or wrong. But consciousness lets us know that if I choose the right one, it will improve my quality. Human quality. If I choose the wrong one, it will damage my human quality. It means it will reduce my human quality to a worse position. I know that, for example, when I learn something, I am happy. I want to learn. My spirit encourages me to choose the learning option. If I don't choose the learning option, automatically I am left with the ignorance option, remaining as an ignorant person. So we have to understand that our spirit has the tool of choice, free will. When I choose the wrong option, in the language of the Quran, which is important here to notice this delicate presentation of the Quran. Quran says, don't follow Satan. What does it mean? It means I am not following my spirit, my reality, but something external to me. Something external to me. When I choose something external to me, it means against my nature, the way I am created. So choosing the wrong action is described in the Quran as following Satan's path. So, Satan represents external reality to human nature. That is its duty. It means this, its duty means this way of teaching says to human being, informs human being that human creation in its original primordial mode or primordial form, it is pure. We don't have anything within ourselves which impulses us or which forces us to choose the bad option. But that this is an option. We have to understand this is an option. That is how I am made. No one can deny that. I have feelings. No one can deny that I have consciousness, which makes me aware of my own reality. No one also can deny that I have free will and I may choose right or wrong. I am free there. That is how I am constructed, how I am made. So the word here, rebellious soul, represents egoistic tendency that I may use through my free will to follow an external thing to my reality, external to my reality. I am emphasizing on this word. External to my reality. My reality directly pulls me, if you like, draws me to go back to my primordial position, which is as I was created purely. For example, let's say more example, very practical example, a knife. A knife is made to be used for good purposes. In its nature, it is made to be used for a good purpose, for a useful purpose for human being. But I may choose against the nature of the knife to kill an innocent person. I may use that. But my consciousness lets me know that what I chose when I kill a person with the knife was wrong. It means it is rejected by my nature. Choosing the knife to kill an innocent person is rejected by my consciousness, by my nature, but still I have a free will. To define what free will is, not important and not possible. It is experiential. I experience it. To see whether I have consciousness or not is experiential. I cannot define it. I cannot put into words. I can only experience that this is my reality. To choose something against my factory settings, if you like, factory settings is possible, but my factory settings reminds me that this choice is against my nature. It means I am not expected to choose this one, but I am free. No one can say that I should lose my power of free will. It means, it would mean I choose not to be a human being, to be a robot. That's why we have to be careful. We have to educate ourselves not to go against our primordial factory setting. We need to educate ourselves. We need to try, or choose to try this way. I hope, I don't know whether it clarifies or so. That's my contribution to the beautiful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. I think you made many of the points that many of the friends were alluding to, and you confirmed and clarified it. So very briefly, if I were to try and summarize some points, but also to answer mainly to Tolu's first question, there is no need, and to us, the definition of a soul is impossible given its nature of being that of a experiential one, something that we realize within ourselves, notice within ourselves, our senses of feelings, our abstract ideas that we give many words to. We have many ways to express it, but not necessarily a single definition. And hence, there's no sort of one definition, but perhaps something that is experienced and expressed according to one's awareness of this within themselves. The human spirit within its nature is pure and knows what is right and wrong, or what it is that leads it to go towards its essential nature, which is its nature to want to get to know its source of existence. Or we can choose to go to believe in or to follow a something that is external to us, that is external to our reality, that is external to the reality of the soul. And consciousness is that which lets me know from within me what is right or wrong. The example of killing a man, whether it was 400 years ago or now, regardless of where you are, you cannot go, if you kill somebody, you don't go to court and say, well, I did not know it was a wrong thing to do. It is, generally speaking, accepted as something that you know and not necessarily taught within, and something that you know within your experience of your consciousness. So that was just like a brief main summary. If anybody has remaining questions, thoughts, comments on this particular question, go ahead. And even if they reoccur afterwards, no worries at all. But we'll move on to our next question, which comes about in the second line, and it's a dense paragraph, which says, what does it mean to submit to the divine law? Of course, people will have different understandings of this, and I will present my attempt at trying to understand this. So definitely the analogy of being this soldier carrying on one side carrying these provisions in a bag and different items, and following the orders of your commander, who knows which direction to send you in, when you're going to stop, how fast you're going to walk, you know, et cetera, et cetera. As opposed to the apparent, you know, quote unquote, free individual, you know, they can, it's very arbitrary in that scenario of how much they'll walk in a day, how far they'll go, what they'll carry, what they won't do. And I understand this concept of submitting to the divine law as exhibited by the individual on the right hand as the one who accepts, but also alongside confirms that, and then implements or follows that there needs to be a process by which I can be assured of reaching my destination safely and satisfactorily. And this acceptance and this confirmation and this following is coming from the fact that this individual recognizes that things in existence around him and within him seem to be following a precise and measured organization. Things happen with a purpose and with a particular time and process. And hence, to be going on this journey, on this path, he too needs to follow or submit or confirm a process or mechanism by which, you know, he can satisfactorily undergo this journey. I take an example. Take an example of traffic rules. So in order for cars to flow and the city to function, let's say during rush hours and other times, and for people to get to places on time and predictably, the traffic lights need to be functioning at particular times for a particular set of time. And they're also very strategically or logically positioned in different parts of the city. So that when you follow or flow through this system, you are in some way, expect that following these rules will not only safeguard your being, but also will, satisfy you in reaching your destination on time and without issue. And so in submitting to the divine law, I accept that there is precision and order present, and hence I too am part of this order and have to perform, let's say, or follow a certain sense of order within myself and in relation to existence. As I observe the order and relations between created things, I too have a certain obligation or relationship that is defined by precision and order and organization between me and existence in order for me to reach this destination. And when I submit to it, I mean that I follow that which is, in this case of the soldier, prescribed to me by my commander and his commander and so on, that it is one that has been tested, but also one that I confirm in my own existence. Nadia says, it means to obey Allah. Would that have some relevance to submitting to the divine law? It definitely will. And if you elaborate further, don't be shy at all of taking to the microphone to explain what you mean by meaning to obey Allah. Would love to hear, how you understand this, because it is, very powerful words. For those, Dr. Ali, you can go ahead.
If no one wants to talk, because I talk already, I took my right. Now, I can use an analogy. For example, I'm using my laptop now for the moment and trying to learn something from you, from everybody's comment here. Now, divine means not of this universe, but the source of existence of this universe. Divine means, by definition, this. Nothing to do within this universe, but the one who originated, created, and is controlling this universe under his maintenance, if you like, sustainership. It means sustaining the existence of the universe through the laws that he has established within this universe as he continues to create constantly. That is divine. As an analogy, while I am using my laptop, here is the laptop in front of my eyes and in front of my usage, that I can use it, utilize it. But I don't know the maker. I haven't seen him. It is not in the laptop that I can communicate with him, but I know that the laptop is made by a conscious being, because the nature of the laptop, the material parts of the laptop, cannot be the maker, originator of the laptop. That is what my consciousness, my spirit tells me. That's what I am. I cannot say this laptop is made by the metals or other parts of this laptop itself. I cannot do that. That is how I am, if you like, hardwired. I cannot reject, I cannot contradict my reality. If I follow, while I am using the laptop, if I follow the rules, the principles that the laptop works, I am obeying the will of the maker of the laptop. Now, I am submitting to his law of using the laptop. But if I crack it, if I break it, if I don't follow the principles which is established in the way that the laptop works, I break the laptop. I cannot benefit from it. Now, if you like, you can liken this laptop analogy to the universe or to yourself, to your own human qualities. So if you misuse your human qualities by using the free will, then you break yourself. You spoil yourself. It means you cannot function as a human being anymore. You start functioning as an animal, as a plant, or as an inanimate being. So mostly people, when I don't follow my factory settings, I don't submit to the laws in my existence, I usually go against my nature and destroy myself, dysfunction my human qualities. It is exactly the same thing, obeying the divine law, the way I am created, obeying the divine law, the way the universe is created. But of course, these are very complicated subjects. I know that. For example, while I cut a tree for nothing, a living tree for nothing, just to destroy it. I can do that. I can cut it. I'm disobeying the order, the law of the way it is created. It means the maker's law. The maker of the tree established a law there. That is what's called in general sense among the English speakers, God, the creator. The creator established the law. If you don't cut it, tree grows according to the law which is established in the universe. But human beings have the free will to cut it. When I cut it, it doesn't continue. It is life. So I would be disobeying, not submitting the divine law, destroying it as I misuse the computer, my laptop. But there is a very fine point here. Submitting to the divine law. Submitting to the divine law is not only in physical terms. How? For example, if I take the knife and use it in order to kill an innocent person, that is against the way that the knife is made, and I am disobeying the physical law of the knife, misusing it. That is obvious. But if I look at the knife and misinterpret, this is a very important point. For me, it is a very important point. I'm sharing it with you. If I misinterpret the purpose of the maker of the knife, claiming that the knife is made by this factory or by this person in order to kill a man, it is also disobeying the divine law. What does it mean? The maker of the knife will say, you are insulting me. Be careful. I didn't make the knife to kill a man. I make the knife to use it for your practical life, for the good way. You know that. Your consciousness tells you. Why do you insult me? And then the maker of the knife, as a human being, we are speaking as in the form of an analogy, he feels offended as a human being. Let's come to the creation now. For example, if I look at the tree, I'm not cutting it, I'm not damaging it, but looking at the tree and say that, oh tree, you are made nothing, by nothing. You just happen to be like that yourself, naturally like this. There is no agent behind your existence. There is no conscious choice behind your existence. There is no purpose behind your existence. That's what I am thinking while I am watching the tree, looking at the tree. What do you think the maker of the tree will say? You are insulting me? I feel offended. You are saying, I have no conscience. I have no purpose. And you are taking my work, which is the tree, and attributing it to a nonsense source. I didn't give you as a human being, because the creator of the tree is the creator of the human being as well. So I didn't give you the quality which justifies this claim. You are just misusing your free will and misinterpreting my act and associating the existence of the tree with something else rather than as my property, as my work. This is also disobeying the divine law. Now, as an extra help to human beings, the creator of the universe, the creator of the human beings, has introduced the meaning of the existence as in the form of a guidance for in front of human free will, and spoke to human beings through something in another human being, which are called prophets. This is not our subject here. But the message from the creator has arrived me. He says, I created the tree and you are expected, I have given you the quality to examine the existence of the tree and realize that the way I created is a unique way, and it is only the only conclusion you can get from the examining of the tree, making a research on the existence of the tree, that you can only attribute the tree to me as the creator of the tree. That is another extra information to human beings, guidance, help to human beings. Like, although the way the computer, my laptop, works, tells me which is right, which is wrong, but as a compassion, as a mercy, the maker of the laptop sends with the laptop a manual book, manufacturer's manual book. If you follow the instructions in the manual book, you are safe, because I am the one who made the laptop. I know how it works. Here it is. If you follow the guidelines here, without damaging the laptop, you can use it, you can get used to, you can really benefit from it. This analogy works for me as a human being. I have to look at my manual book, what it says, how to use myself, and I have to use the manual book of the universe at the same time. It guides me how to use it. That is why we have to look for the manual book of the universe. It means me and the other creatures around me. So if the creator of the universe and if the creator of the human beings, a conscious being, which must be because he created a conscious human being, he must be a conscious because he gave me the consciousness. If he wasn't a conscious creator, he wouldn't be able to make me a conscious being. So if he is a conscious being, and if he wants to help me, which seems to be I need guidance for my free will, then I have to look for the guidance from my creator, because he's a conscious being. He must be a conscious being. A conscious being must be a compassionate one, merciful one, and loving one, and helping one. So to make my responsibility in this world, to make my mission in this world, easier to perform in the right way, I think I expect him to send me the guidance. It means he sends me the laptop, and I expect the maker to send me with the laptop, alongside with the laptop, manufacturer's guiding book, manufacturer's manual book. So this is very necessary for human consciousness, that the universe must work in this way. And how it does, I have my own qualities to understand that this is right. I have also the universe around me to teach me that it is created for a purpose. There is law, principles of using the universe out there, and there must be a conscious source, and this conscious source must also give me guidance, speak to me as I understand, in the way that I understand how to utilize myself and the universe without causing any damage in the creation. If I follow this, it would mean I am submitting to the divine law in two terms, as following how it is the universe is expected to be used, and also following the manufacturer's manual book, which is God's guideline sent through the prophets to us. That's why we have to look and search where the guideline is. Well, somebody may say, we are Muslims, we know the guideline is the Quran. No, you have to search. You have to study. You have to investigate which is the right guideline. The Christians say the Bible is the guideline. The Jews say the Torah is the guideline. And Muslims say the Quran is the guideline. The others say other sources are the guidelines. Whatever, there are many claims there. At least if you say, I am sure the Quran is the guideline, manufacturer's manual handbook, study it. That's what we are trying to study. For example, what we are trying to do here to understand one part of the Quran speech, yeah, then that's why it is here is the words, the translation, all people worship. It is one part of the guideline which says, Ya ayyuhan nasu u'budu, worship, acknowledge, follow the right way. Don't follow what is against your nature, Satan, which means worship means acknowledging, obeying, submitting to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for giving us multiple dimensions on how to unpack this word of submitting to the divine law, primarily being the fact that divine means not of the nature of this universe, and submitting means to use something, including ourselves, as the way it is intended or was created to be used. And so following the way something is meant, the purpose of the thing, and using it with purpose alongside referring to the guidance, or the, as you called, the manual that comes with our life, with things, using them alongside in, I guess, with diligence and sort of a commitment to wanting to make the most out of the thing in the way that it was intended by its conscious creator is referred to as submitting to the divine will. So there's some comments in the chat box. I'll quickly read the comment from Ali. He says, I think it could mean to surrender to Allah on certain matters of the unseen, cause without submission to the divine law, one is left wondering his thoughts about existential possibilities that could potentially lead the person to deviate from the right path. Again, having a free will, quality means a choice can be made. Following this logic, one could understand that Allah, using divine will, is trying to protect a person from the possible deviant conclusions their free will could make. So as Dr. Ali was sharing, the manual or the guidance comes as compassion or as a gesture of mercy, which corroborates your statement about, you know, if I want to use the laptop, and in order for me to be sure, absolutely sure that I make the most of it, I can only be sure if I am able to confirm it with alongside the manual that is given by the company, without which, as you said, one can fall into sort of wandering or doubt. He may or may not be right. There's no way to be 110% sure, but the guidance that comes as part of our life allows us the opportunity to confirm its claims and sort of practice it in our experience to be entirely sure that we are using or living our life and using our free will, experiencing our soul, practicing our consciousness in just the way that it was intended to be by its conscious creator. And doing it out of any other reason or assumption would be to disobey or disrespect the will or the intention and the purpose with which it was created. Okay. If there's anybody else who wants to chime in on the topic of submitting to the divine will, please go ahead. In the time remaining, we still have some very good, interesting questions left. And I will, there was an order with which I wanted to go, but considering the time, I will just choose one of the questions that I perhaps wanted to discuss myself. And the rest of the questions, we can hope that our moderator next week can help address them too. So there is a concept, there are few concepts that come in the middle. I'm sad that there's just, a little bit of time to discuss things. But there's a concept of a burden of worship, finding the treasury and everything. And then there's this particular concept that I wanted to discuss, which is, what does it mean to knock on the door with his supplication? Obviously, bearing in mind that this question sort of comes after having the author having sort of discussed, the rifle and the kitback experience of fear and awe. And he also, although we've been talking about worship, not in particularly physical terms only, we are introduced to this idea of our worship is expressed or is taught to us to be expressed effectively through prescribed prayers, and that these prescribed prayers or other forms of worship are allowing us to knock on the door with supplication. And so I would be very, very interested to hear other participants who may not have had the chance today to speak. I was, the way that I present this or understand the knocking on the door with supplication is that, as we heard several times and Dr. Ali emphasized greatly, is the importance and of recognizing that what I'm interacting with, whether it's myself or or life itself, it has a conscious owner or a conscious creator. And that recognizing this consciousness is an essential part of my attitude towards my life. And, you know, just knowing that, let's say, the creator of this laptop is conscious may not be enough for us as individuals, because consciousness for us necessitates some sort of connection with it also. And we desire, you know, knowing that something is conscious not only requires, but I guess urges or inculcates in us a desire to want to establish a connection with it through an expression. To realize that my relationship or my connection will provide me with something that I need, or that I'm using this thing for. You know, what am I using my life for? What am I using my creation for a particular purpose? You know, a purpose that secures my existence. And in the case of this soldier, that secures his journey towards his destination, that it secures his security and assures him that he reaches there with safety and, you know, accomplishing the goal that he needs to. And so it is essential for me to ensure this, to establish a conscious connection or a relationship with the source of my existence. It's an expression of one's conclusions on who he needs to turn to or turn his attention towards. I conclude that in order for me to, you know, if I have a problem with this laptop, I conclude that I have to reach out to the creator of this laptop. I have to, quote unquote, knock on his door, make an effort to make myself known to him, that I recognize that he is in fact the one that I need to address and call upon for help and guidance in this case. And supplication, I understand as the language that is employed for this particular relationship. For every relationship, conscious relationship that we have particular ways of addressing that particular individual. And supplication, which is a expression of our being, of our state of being, the one of being in need, the one of being in need of protection, of the one in need of guidance, of you know, requiring security, that becomes my language, or that becomes the words or my supplication in that I use in order to connect and establish a conscious connection with my creator. Dr. Ali, please go ahead. You are muted. Oh,
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but since you gave me the opportunity, I would use it, although I spoke a lot today. But anyways, we don't have much time. Now, if someone is present in front of you, he or she presents you a gift. If you are sure that this person is present in front of you, as soon as you get the gift, you turn to him, smile at him and him or her, and express your gratitude because of this beautiful relationship, that your human nature recognizes it. That's a good action. So in order to, that's what I hurried to raise my hand up to have the speech, to speak to you, to share my excitement. In order to present our supplication, we have to be aware that the one who created the universe is always at work, if you like, from our perspective. He is ever present. He is not like anything of this universe. He is the creator of that moment that I am experiencing my existence. It means I am just receiving the gift of existence of everything right now. It means the one who creates the universe is giving me my existence, giving the existence of the universe and everything in them, in myself as human being, in my body, in my human qualities, and also in the universe that I am communicating with. Everything is given to me right now. Then I feel that I have to acknowledge, I have to express my happiness to him, to the creator, because I am not expecting his physical existence in front of me, because the creator cannot be like the physical form of the universe, which is his creation, like an art. While you are looking at the art, you see the artistry in it, but you don't see the artist a part of the art, in the art, a part of the art. Artist has another existence, art has another existence. Artist is the originator of the art. Art is what is made by the artist. That is human quality, acknowledges this, knows this reality. The universe is presented to us by an artist, if you like, by a creator, if you like. I mean, artist means in Arabic, sani'a, which is used in the Quran as well. The artist of the universe is presenting the universe to me, is presenting my existence to me, is presenting my consciousness to me right now. This is the prerequisite of making supplication. This is necessary in order to be able to knock on the door of the Creator with my acknowledgement, with my supplication. Unfortunately, supplication is understood in a very narrow way, although not completely wrong, but extremely narrow way. When I am in trouble, I feel helpless, hopeless. I feel completely not able to do anything. Then I turn to the possibility that the creator of the universe may be, I may ask him to help me. This is a very cheap way of understanding supplication. The real supplication is a constant acknowledgement of the creator of the universe and being obliged to present your gratefulness to whatever he creates for you. Because if you know that he is the creator of the universe, he is creating something, whether you like it or not, from your perspective, whether you see that it is really satisfying your expectation or not from your perspective. Your perspective means, of course, free will. You may rightly identify it or you may misinterpret it. So you have to be conscious that, we have to be conscious that the creator of the universe knows and creating everything in a perfect way. And in order to educate me, in order to help me to get to know who I am and who the creator is. I am the one who is needy. Creator is the one who provides all needs for me, for my education, for my acknowledgement of himself. So supplication is only possible if I am conscious that right now, whatever exists is presented to me in the form of a gift from the Creator, and I am receiving it. Of course, I have to acknowledge it through my consciousness. That is what I am made. That is what my consciousness teaches me, shows me that I have to do it, and I have to present my position to him, acknowledging that I didn't create any of the things here, neither myself nor the universe out there. You did it, you created it, and I am very grateful that you are presenting this gift of creation to me and introducing yourself to me. I acknowledge it and I confirm it, and I present my neediness to you that if you had not created the universe, I would never exist by myself. That is the core of supplication, acknowledging that everything is provided by him. Nothing I can create, I can provide by myself. This understanding of, if you like, spiritual awareness includes the supplication. It is actual supplication, real supplication, not petty supplication when you are given everything, you don't acknowledge it, but only when you fail to implement your expectations, you accomplish your expectations, then you cannot do it. Say, oh God, please do it. It is a very cheap way of understanding of supplication. Thank you. I am excited about this aspect of supplication. That's why I took your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ali, for highlighting what is the core of supplication, that which comes from acknowledging that this very moment in which we exist is truly a gift presented to us, and acknowledging this in the form of thanks is the heart of supplication. I just shared some questions that inshallah the moderator for next week can consider pursuing them if they wish so. And for people in this group to consider thinking on if they'd like. And with that, I think we should conclude our session for today. Thank you, everybody, for your very helpful and effective contributions. So inshallah, we'll close the session. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Wa akhiru da'wahum anil hamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Bi hurmati sirri surat al-Fatiha. Ameen.